My father was a great man. He lived well into his 90s, and everybody loved my dad. He had a couple of things that he really ran his life by, and he passed those on to me, I hope anyway. The first thing was loyalty. Loyalty to his family, loyalty, fierce loyalty to his friends, and loyalty to his country. In our family, we had 2 Marines, one a master sergeant and one a brigadier general, and a colonel in the U.S. Army. So we had loyalty to our country especially. One day, my father, who owned a trucking company, had one of his drivers who had been driving for him for about 9 years. His wife called him and said, "Mr. DeGutis, Willie can't come in. And as a matter of fact, he's very ill and he cannot come in for 6 months. The doctor said it'll be almost 6 months. He won't be able to work. He's very sad, Mr. DeGutis." Well, my father said, "Don't worry about it. You tell Willie this, that I will pay him for the next 6 months. He was a loyal employee of mine for all of his life. He came in the morning, got in his truck at 4 a.m. and went to work for me day in and day out. It's the least I can do to pay him for those 6 months. Get healthy, get back to work, and get back in your truck." She was so happy and told Willie later. And of course, when he was well, and he was back in about 4 months, he was very thankful for my dad. Another thing that he did, which I thought was exceptionally great, was teach us about loyalty to family. On kind of a bad note, my brother, about 20 years ago, was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. And I said to myself, how would I feel if I was in his shoes? And I would want my brother to be with me. And so for the past 6 months, or the last 6 months, I should say, of his life, I was with him most of the time. And he really appreciated it. We laughed, we sang, we cried. We were together. We had loyalty to each other and loved each other deeply. Another thing that my dad had was his attitude. He was ebullient. When he walked in the room, he lit it up. It was like flicking on a bright 500-watt bulb. He would smile. He would shake your hand. He would almost break it off. He was so strong. And he had this attitude toward life. Nothing really bothered him. Later on, with his trucking company, he took on a partner. And his partner went to Las Vegas with the money and gambled it all away. Now, most men would really get angry at this guy. And all he could say to him is, "Why did you do this, Johnny? Why did you do this?" And he said, "Well, I don't know, John. I really don't understand why I did it, but I did it." He says, "Well, I forgive you." He says, "Just tell your wife that you're going to have to get another job." That's all it was. He took a second mortgage out on the house, and we started all over again. He was that kind of guy. As a matter of fact, his last year or so, he really didn't even recognize who I was. He was in a nursing home. And I visited him most every night. So I was at his bedside, and it was the night before Thanksgiving, and I said, "Dad, tomorrow we're going to have Thanksgiving dinner." He said, "Oh my, I love mashed potatoes and gravy and stuffing." I said, "Well, we'll have all that." He was so happy. He says, "Will you cut me that thick slice of white meat like I like?" I said, "Yep, Dad, I'll cut that thick slice of white meat." Oh, he was so happy. And then he said, "What about dessert? Do you have pumpkin pie like I really like it with whipped cream all over the top?" "I do." He laid back in the pillow and he smiled as he slept. The next morning, I got a phone call from the nurse. "Mike, your father passed away last night." He lived his life like he died, with a smile on his face.